before we get talking. All right, I call to order. Mr. Clerk, you ready?
Yes, sir, I'm ready.
All right, I call to order this City Council agenda workshop. It is July 17th, 2024. It's 4:33. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Stevens.
Here.
Councilman Leon. Councilwoman Julian. Here. Councilwoman McDarrell. Councilwoman Campbell.
Present.
Vice Mayor Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Harris.
I'm present. Please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
God our Father, we thank you for your many blessings. We thank you for your grace and your mercy towards us. It's in this moment now, God, we pray for your knowledge, your wisdom, and your understanding as my colleagues and I prepare to discuss business that ultimately affect our people. We pray that you continue to bless this great city of Miami Gardens that we call home. And in all things, we promise to give you all the praise, honor, and glory. It is in your Son's name I do pray. Amen.
Amen.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're on budget presentations. Mr. City Manager.
All right, we're on to item 4, presentations, item 4.1, budget presentation by the city manager.
Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Today is our workshop for the proposed budget for fiscal year 2025. I'm going to ask the Deputy City Manager, Craig Clay, to give a brief presentation on where we are currently, with knowing the fact that we have some work to do over the summer. But at this point in time, I'll turn it over to Craig Clay. Thank you.
Mr. Clay.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Good afternoon, Mayor Harris, Vice Mayor Wilson, members of the council, Craig Clay, Deputy City Manager. Thank you for allowing us to spend some time with you today.
Craig, is that a lapel?
It's a lapel, Mike, yes, sir. Yeah. I got tired of trying to bend over and talk to you, Councilman, so we tried to make it a little bit more convenient for you all. So as we build our budget, you know, we must be cognizant of a lot of things that are happening in our country and around the world that affect our local and our global economies. So each year when we begin, there are always issues that we must consider. So this year, the economy continues to react to various things, whether or not there'll be an interest rate decrease, whether it will increase, whether it will stay the same. Changes in federal spending, and various preemptive measures that happen at our state and our local level. All of these factors require us to be prepared for whatever is in store. So despite those challenges that have arisen, we've continued to provide the necessary day-to-day services, and we continue to do long-term projects designed to maintain a quality physical infrastructure. This budget contains a number of key projects totaling over $10 million. Councilman Stevens, I know that's something that's near and dear to your heart. This budget also includes the Leslie Estates Road and Drainage Project, despite the governor's veto of a significant amount allocated for that project. Our general obligation bond initiative continues to progress. So far in fiscal year 2024, we've completed Brentwood Park, and we continue work on our signature park, Rolling Oaks. Parks programming continues at an all-time high with after-school, summer camp, painting, digital photography, and thanks to Director Murphy and her green thumb, we have established community gardens at many of our sites offering fresh produce on a first-come, first-served basis. Our senior center offers programming every day of the week with over 30 different programs for our seniors to choose from. And finally, 2 debt obligations have been paid off, which will save the city over $1.4 million in interest payments over the next several years. Including these, the city has been able to eliminate over $48 million in debt service since 2013. And so as we build the budget, the first thing that we must consider is what will our pot of resources look like? The largest portion of that pot in our general fund is ad valorem revenues or property taxes. And our property taxes are based on our taxable value. The city's taxable value increased from approximately $7.8 billion in fiscal year 2024 to $8.7 billion in fiscal year 2025, and that's on the slide 2 that is before you in your presentations. On your slide, we've summarized that into 3 major areas. New construction at approximately $102 million, growth in the CRA, $76 million, and then growth in our existing tax base of over $683 million, which is very, very impressive. As a result, we are recommending maintaining the operating millage rate steady at 6.9363 mills. Also, due to the growth, the debt service millage rate is being reduced to 0.4762 mills, reducing the city's overall millage rate for the 10th consecutive year. Revenue from property taxes is just one component of our general fund budget, okay? This slide here, before I jump to that, this is just a graphical representation of how your millage rate has been reduced since 2015, from 8.2363 mills to what we're proposing at 7.4125 mills in fiscal year 2025. Another large component of that pot is state revenue sharing. So every year we come to you at about this time, and there are a number of revenue sources that we know, and there are a number that we don't know. State revenue sharing, we generally never know at this particular point in time because those estimates don't come out from the state until around the end of July. And so half-cent sales tax, municipal revenue sharing, and communications tax, those make up about 17% of our general fund revenue budget. We expect those numbers to be out in the next couple of days, and certainly by the next time we convene in September, we should have estimates for those. Expenses. We are anticipating increased expenses, fuel, utilities. This is what we expect every year. The prices of goods and services go up, and so we expect that. This year, we did receive a little bit of a reprieve from FRS. Generally, each year in July, we receive what we expect our contributions to be to the Florida retirement system. Last year, to give you a comparison, that number was up over 7%. So this year, our contribution rates increased on average by 0.37%, which was very welcome news as we move forward in building this budget. Unknown. Once again, we have some concerns about insurance and where we could potentially wind up there. So our property, general liability, workers' comp, and auto insurance, we have not received those estimates for increases yet. Last year, when I stood before you at this time, we said we anticipated about a 10% increase, but when I came back before you in September, that increase was actually 172%. We certainly don't expect that this year. I don't know, but certainly we will watch that and monitor that as we move forward. Health insurance is also another one. For the last 2 years, we've negotiated a rate lock with Aetna, so we were capped at what the increase could be. In year 2 of our contract with Aetna, we fell below that rate cap at about 11% last year. The rate was capped at 15%. This year, our medical loss ratio, which dictates what that increase will be, is rather high. And so over the course of the next month or so, we hope to receive that information, and then we will incorporate that and be able to talk intelligently with you about that as we come back in September. And so I'd like to end a little bit with a brief analysis of our revenue versus expenditures. And I'm glad, Vice Mayor, I hope you're chuckling at this slide, because we did want to bring a little bit of levity and humor to the situation as we talk about it. And so what we've done here is we've kind of analyzed our revenue versus expenditure growth for the last 6 years, and we've given you a projection for the next 6 years. The red, the expenditure growth, the gentleman in the Porsche, the young gentleman in the Porsche. The green line represents our taxable value. The blue line represents our revenue growth. And so you can see in fiscal year 2019, the young lady in the sedan outpaced the gentleman in the Porsche. In fiscal year 2020, they were neck and neck. 2021, she beat him again. 22, they were neck and neck. 23, she beat him again. 24, we anticipate them to be neck and neck. As we get into subsequent years, if we're not prudent and intentional with our resource allocation, the young gentleman in the Porsche will overtake the young lady in the sedan. So our expenditure growth will outpace our revenue growth, which then prevents some issues for us that we don't want to face. And so there's a little quote that I wanted to leave you with before we begin to answer some questions. And so the ultimate measure is not where someone stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. We don't want to get to challenge and controversy. Mayor Harris, thank you. We're willing to take any questions you have.
Any questions for Mr. Clay?
I have questions, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Well, I want to start off by thanking the city manager and Professor Craig Clay here and your entire staff for working on this budget. And we know that this is something that you all do yearly and diligently, so thank you for that. So Craig, you talked about the 2 debt obligations that have been paid off. What are those 2?
When we established ourselves as a city, Councilwoman, there was a portion of the county's debt on various debt obligations that we had to take over.
Okay.
And so over the years, we have refinanced those a couple of times early in 2020 and 2021 to take advantage of lower interest rates at that particular time. Because if you go back to our graph here, because our young lady in the sedan was ahead of the gentleman in the Porsche, we were able to build up a cachet of reserves that allowed us to pay those off. And so we saved ourselves again in interest payments there over the next several years, and we no longer have to worry about allocating dollars for that moving forward.
Okay. Well, anytime you can pay off debt, that is always a good thing, whether it's personal debt, commercial debt, government debt. So kudos to you all for having the vision and making sure that we stay afloat. And as it relates to the state revenue sharing, I know that like budget workshops and budget terminologies can be a little intimidating for most. Can you just explain that or give an example for those who may not be familiar with how that works?
Sure, I'll go back to that slide if you want me to. Okay. So there are various forms of state revenue sharing. So several years ago, the state created state revenue sharing to create revenue parity. At the time, there was a considerable difference between what larger cities and counties were taking in versus smaller to medium-sized cities and counties. And so the state created a revenue sharing program that is largely based on population to dispel that parity. And so half-cent sales tax, municipal revenue sharing, and communications tax, although they are generated from different sources, Most of them are either economy-based revenues that fluctuate with the economy. Communications tax is one of those. Municipal revenue sharing and half-cent sales tax are more population-based. So the larger your population is, the more you're able to receive in either of those funding sources. So when we go to the gas station and we have, it's $3.50 a gallon, a portion of that $3.50 is a tax that is then reallocated out to various cities and counties throughout the state of Florida.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Deputy City Manager, Mr. Manager, Finance Team, thank you for this sketch of the outline upcoming budget. Just looking at, and this is a good job based on the taxable value of the city, 10-figure, $8 billion city. With the expected growth with the 35 acres and with the projects that we have in the Harper right now, what are we, I see your squiggly lines, but what are we estimating that new taxable value to be? What are you thinking, or projection?
Yeah, we're projecting somewhere between an 8 to 10% growth in taxable value each year for those next 6 years here on the slide. We believe that that is sustainable, and we believe that that makes sense. What sometimes is dangerous is when you get these large increases from one year to the next, and then you see all of that revenue coming in, and naturally we then make decisions, expenditure decisions, that sometimes get us in trouble when the line goes this way. So what we anticipate is a slow but steady growth over the next 6 years as a result of new construction and as a result of increased values in existing properties.
And so with that 10% growth, when we start looking at support staff, or as police and things like that, just roughly estimating what will that number look like based on, retirement, retention, with this whole entertainment district. So I just want to make sure that we know we have the growth coming and that we're building in there for that.
Yeah. And so if we have, Councilman, that sort of slow and steady growth, then each year we would be adding to our personnel and we would be adding to our operating costs to get us to where we need to be. For example, we're opening parks. So each time we open parks, you'll see that included in here is a reserve for new parks. So we anticipate Rolling Oaks coming on sometime during fiscal 25. We've set aside funding for us to be able to manage and operate that. And so as we continue to bring on new development, things of that nature, we know we need to grow in various areas, and we have accounted for that in our projection here and certainly in our fiscal 25 budget.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay. Stay on that screen right there, because I have a question as it relates to that screen. So the numbers on the right reflect the taxable value, is that correct? I
Yes.
see that label. Okay. What do the numbers on the left represent?
It is the taxable value spelled out in millions.
Okay. So based on the statement that you said, the expenditures could possibly outpace the revenue growth. So by year 2030, is that correct?
Yes.
So with that projection in mind, is it safe to say that the expenses, things that monies are being spent on, is going to be more than what we're actually in our base, our revenue?
It could, but what our intent here was, Councilwoman, is to make sure that we understand that we have to be careful.
Okay.
We have to be prudent and intentional. Was kind of that's going to be our marching this time. Last year it was cautious optimism. This year it's prudent and intentional with our spending so that we don't get ourselves into that situation.
And that needs to start like now. Is that safe to say? So we won't encounter that down the road?
Yes, we've been doing it.
Okay.
As you can see, we're in good shape, but us finance people are always a little nervous.
Understood. Okay, that was all. And good job. This is good.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I can go ahead, Vice Mayor. Okay. Thank you. I'm actually going to dive a little deeper into more itemized requests that I have as it relates to the budget. Not necessarily the presentation. This was very clear to me. But I do want to make sure that as we're in the process of preparing the budget and getting it to my colleagues and I to vote on it in September, that we pay attention to a few things as it relates to what I'm concerned about, and that's always infrastructure. I want to make sure that the budget is reflecting a huge infrastructure improvements as it relates to seawalls, just the overall infrastructure on roads and sidewalks that the city is responsible for. So at the next prepared presentation or the proposed budget, I would like to request that it is highlighted the amount of funding that's allocated to infrastructure improvement holistically, and if we can break it down as it relates to what that looks like. That would do it for me. I also want to take a look at the different departments, what the improvement to their budgets, the increases or decreases look like to their budgets. So if we're improving, if we're increasing, and I can give, there's certain departments that I'm concerned about. So maybe, Mr. Manager, we can meet to talk about those things on this off to prepare in general. We don't necessarily have to do it in this format, but I just want to make sure I take a look at what those look like as well, as we move forward with preparing for the budget. My colleagues and I, along with the city, we have a number of organizations, a number of non-for-profit areas, our local schools that we create or that we donate to throughout the fiscal year. Yes. So I also want us to explore what a package system look like, and use that as a cap to what we give within that fiscal year.
So I'm sorry, you said a package system?
Yes,
okay.
A package of donations to our local schools, our local non-for-profits. If we, not necessarily has to be included in the budget, but if we can create what that can potentially look like, right? So if we budget for $10,000 in the line item to donate to our local schools, this is what this would look like. Am I making sense with that?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
I think that's all that I have now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Vice Mayor.
Yes. I do understand that, that our expenditures are growing, and some of that has little to do with our management. It's just the cost of living. However, one of the things that I didn't see it in the report that I got, the number of employees at each department level. And I'd like to see what that analysis looks like over time, over the last maybe 5 years, whether we have seen a reduction or an increase, or whether or not it has stayed the same. Because I know that the personnel budgets can probably be one of the largest budgets, but it also can be an area that we need to look at to ensure that some of our most critical departments are that they're well equipped to handle the workload there. So I'd like to take a look at what the numbers are from over the last 3 to 5 years, if that's okay.
For sure.
And the impact of the overtime in each one of those departments as well, okay? Additionally, because we are having a lot more events in our city, the question that I'd like to ask is, what's the impact on our public works? Like, are we able to clean up I know that when we've had Super Bowls and stuff like that, we have super teams that are out there that do a great job. But I do think that we have events that are not as large, but are just as impactful as it relates to requiring a cleanup after it's gone. And so I didn't see the allowance of that in the preliminary review. If it's there, I'd like for you to show it to me when you and I have an opportunity to sit down.
Okay.
That cool?
That's cool.
All right.
Mr. Clay, so say for instance, we have a department that's, may have some openings, but they've been fully functional, haven't missed a beat for like the last year. Are we looking to, cut the budget on those positions since they've been able to, sustain the workload and, you know, like I said, haven't missed a beat?
Yeah.
Is that a way we can save some money in those areas also?
Yeah, one of the first things we look at when we start looking at the expense side, we examine revenues first because we need to know kind of where we're starting. One of the first things we look at, Councilman, on the expense side is long-term vacancies, and we look for just that. Well, why has this position been vacant for an extended period of time? In fact, one of Manager Benson's policies is that
An attempt be made to align our budgeting. I mean, is there any way possible that there will be an alignment with our strategic plan with our budget for this year, or will it be something that will have to come over into next year?
I think we've accounted for some of the things that we kind of believe will come out of the strategic planning process. Now, certainly, we don't know yet because we haven't, fully gone through the process, but we've attempted to account for some of that, Vice Mayor, in the areas where we believe that there will be some discussion, whether it be an increase in positions, whether it be an increase in operating costs, or a decrease, depending on what it is, or a realignment. Mm-hmm. So we've thought about that and accounted for some of that in this budget, and certainly budgets moving forward.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Deputy City Manager, can I, when you all prepare as well, can we get a line item that specify the positions within each department? Show that to reflect within the budget. Normally, it just shares salaries or X, Y, and Z, but I would like to see the positions within the budget. So for an example, IT, the personnel's X, Y, and Z within those areas.
Sure. We can, once we get to the final budget, it's usually in there, but it's in a different place. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's too big. It's buried in too deep. Yeah. So I got you. Very simple. I got you. We're on very simple step. Very simple.
We're on it.
Yeah, it's there, but it's too deep. It's too deep. I don't have enough time to look at it. It'd be about 800 pages.
Any other questions, you guys?
Yeah, I just want to, for me, end with, I hear you when you say that, we need to be prudent and intentional. And it is my hope that my colleagues and I can sit together and work out this budget and thinking about the longevity of the city and thinking about the future of the city. And maybe we can come together and look at all the events that are taking place and see where we can cut. It's almost like your own personal savings and budgeting for your own personal self. You cut here and you cut there for the long term. And so if that's something that we all can do, I think it'll be great in making sure that our city is sustainable.
Yeah.
I think that was Mr. Clay's intent to say prudent for us to be that way. So,
but he can say it, but we have to act on it. We have to act on it.
Right,
and this is the time.
But let's be clear that what we see budgeted for special events is there's far more happening outside of just what's outlined on the special events list.
Absolutely.
So we're going to have a conversation about events. We need to talk about conversations that every event that's taking place in the city and not just something that's led by a council member or the city council as a whole.
All events.
So we need to talk about it all. Departments, individual departments, every area.
And we
it
have
needs
to
be a
have,
conversation.
when we do meet with them, we have to be honest and open with everybody about it. got to make sure that we address everything because we want this city to prosper way after we're gone.
Yeah.
That part. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I just want to add to that, I concur with Councilwoman Linda Julian as well as Robert Stevens. That is something that we, need to be mindful of moving forward. And I've even asked, personally, anyone up here, like, for instance, I'm just giving an example, toy drives. We should just do one toy drive, and the whole city takes advantage of that. I don't think that, because we're spending money, and we're doing the same thing. Just come together, do one, and that's just an example. So I thank you for bringing that up, and I concur with the both of you.
And we have the summer to discuss it and move forward with it.
So when are we gonna meet to discuss it?
I think that's a good question.
First of all, everybody has the opportunity to meet with the city manager's office and finances and make sure that what we want to see, we talk to them about it. Then we can do more workshops. We're gonna do more workshops anyway. So we can do some more things to address those issues.
But Mr.
first,
Mayor,
before I think that takes place on an individual basis for us.
right.
Let them know exactly what we want to see, how we want to see it, and why.
Right, but to talk about events holistically, not just necessarily events, just areas overall that we can save funding from moving forward, we gotta have, we aside from that separate individual meetings, because I don't know what Councilwoman Campbell's asking, I don't know what Vice Mayor is asking, so we have to have we gotta have another workshop.
Yeah, we having more workshops before we get to the final budget, correct?
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilmember, yes, we will have other workshops to have those conversations, but I think it's important we have the individual conversations as well, and then move those to a collected workshop to discuss everybody's opinions.
Well, let me say this, because I think I'm the only one that's lost here. We have one more workshop. We break for recess in August, and then when we come back, we're voting for the proposed budget. There has to be a workshop scheduled so that we can discuss these items that was just mentioned. It's not only
remember now, we only on recess for just
the entire month of August.
Yeah, but just for a council meeting.
Right, so that's why.
They're still working.
Right, so that's why I asked, let's put it on the calendar to set times in place, because August, there's a number of things that's happening. You're talking about election, there's a number of things. So we have to come to a consensus. Hold on. We have to come to a consensus when we can come back together to discuss these items. Because if not, then it's not going to be discussed.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have to tell you, I totally agree. I really, really think, because each one of us represents in some way a project, an event. And just as the councilman is saying, there are those that are citywide. But what we haven't done is really looked at it as a holistic item, and to see where there may be a duplication, to see where there may be an unnecessary thing, to see where our schedules may conflict or could be streamlined. We collectively have to be able to sit at a table and put our heads together and say, hey, what about doing this? And what about doing that? And see how we can flush that out in a way that allows it to be more feasible for our experts in the budget to be able to take and go that way. I think if we fail to collectively sit together at some point, it'll be us operating in silos.
How soon do you guys want to meet?
Well, let me say something here. We have 2 more workshops, correct? We have 2 more. How many more workshops do we have, Craig?
We have on July 24th next week, we're doing the not to exceed. And then September 11th is your first budget hearing, and September 25th is your final budget hearing.
So why don't we incorporate that not to exceed workshop with the stuff that we have in mind? So this allows us to go and do our homework, read through this 80-some, 100-something page budget, right? And see the things that we want to work on, and everybody jot down their notes, and then at this workshop, we can discuss.
Will the budget be, that booklet be prepared for by next week?
With all the things that you're asking for.
Except the
no.
state funding.
Okay.
Yeah, it won't be ready.
Okay, okay.
With the different variations, no. But if I might offer, if you're going to have a discussion about,
Events?
yeah, that's in there. You know, what we spent and what's allocated and all of that.
Right.
But that's
So
not what we're
here's
talking
my thing, and I'm gonna try not to get
worked up.
the time frame that we're talking about the budget now is not acceptable. Moving forward with the majority consensus, we need to start having conversations at least in June, if not May, as it relates to the prepare the budget. Because what's happening now is we're now coming up with ideas and we're trying to find a way to fit it in. The overall budget page consists of so many pages, and we have such little time to prepare to vote for the budget to make sure it addresses the needs of what my colleagues and I would like to see moving forward. That's what we're running into. Right now, we're just looking at trying to put together a meeting, a workshop by next week to discuss some heavy ticket items that's necessary. Yes, it's in the proposed budget that you all have prepared, but again, no individual council member can give instructions on other items. So I can go in and say, remove STEM Fest or remove X, Y, and Z, and then Councilwoman Julian can come back and say, no, I want to see it in there. So the best thing to do is have a collective conversation so that we can all move with one bound, one band, one sound as it relates to how we move forward.
But can I ask a question?
That's what you're suggesting to have.
Right. That's
Yes.
that's right. I'm not neglecting the fact of what's being requested. What I'm saying is the time frame that we're now dealing with is not conducive, because you're talking about one meeting next. We have one more workshop scheduled. Am I correct?
You have
One more
you really
workshop, and you have two meetings that we would take a vote on. So you have one more meeting scheduled. Am I correct?
Yes, you had enough.
That's what I'm saying. It's not enough time. This is not fair.
Man,
Go ahead.
so why can't we do just like the government does?
Well, can I add something, Vice Mayor? You do have between next week, Councilman, and September the 11th. I know that we have some time off there in August, but there's some time there where there could be a workshop to discuss some of the things that you're talking about. But we do need some time to sort of massage the data in the ways that you've asked for it. Even though the data is there, we do need some time to massage it in the way that you've asked for it. But if the discussion is, I heard you say events and some of those things, I think the information is probably there for you to discuss that piece.
But the question I'm asking is, so what if we're late approving the budget? What happens?
We cannot be late. We're out of compliance with the state of Florida, which could mean a lot of different things if we're not done by September 30th.
What? Like what?
It means that state revenue sharing dollars, those are withheld. It could be additional fines to the municipality.
Okay, so then what about a budget amendment? Are we allowed to submit our budget, and if at such time we have to amend it, can that be sent to the state at that time?
The state requires us to approve a balanced budget.
Right.
We can do budget amendments, and we oftentimes do mid-year budget adjustments. We've done that several times. So if you find something that we need to add, we need to take away, you certainly can do that, yes.
So if we continued with this process and we approved the budget, but we went and continued with the process to make amendments and adjustments with respect to the programming and other items, there would be nothing that would preclude us from doing that.
That's correct.
Okay. So then the process, in terms of what you're asking for, we can still go through that process.
Yes.
We have to approve our budget, but we still would be able to make amendments to it that would allow us to go to that budget and remove, add, and adjust accordingly. True?
True.
Okay.
Would
So
that be,
then-
I'm so sorry.
I'm
Would
so-
that be done during the mid-year, to Vice Mayor's point? Mid-year adjustment or
Typically,
prior
we would
to?
do it during the mid-year.
Okay,
If you're talking about doing changes such as maybe taking from one line item, moving it to another one, we do that all the time. You can do that at any point during the year if that's something that you would suggest.
All right, so then if we're talking about mid-year, what month is that?
We generally do it in March.
Okay, so we'd have to go 50% of our year to make an adjustment.
No. You don't have to. I said we typically do
But
it.
that's what she's saying is mid-year is in March. And
Yes.
so I'm saying if we were to accept that, then we're 50% of the year through. And really what we are saying is, I mean, what I'm hearing people say is that if we're not gonna let the red Porsche catch us, right? Is that we've got to really look and be responsible with this here now. And it allows us, by the time we get to mid-year, to determine whether or not we've made the corrections in our speed, the whole nine. And then we're even more ready for the next year. So this process of being able to correct and set a course for the ride of our city, it begins now, not mid-year. It really just is ongoing. I recognize that we have our statutory obligations to meet, but it doesn't preclude us from continuing to work on this and to really crystallize what we need to do. And honestly, mid-year is, I think, too far down the line, for us to wait. I think we got to do it while it's fresh in our minds.
and you're absolutely right. So historically, they've done it mid-year, but what I understand Craig is saying that is that we can do it prior to mid-year.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You're not waiting to March.
Now, wait.
So
We need to keep going.
we're going to do another workshop next week to address those event issues and anything else that we need to talk about. Is that the consensus for all of us?
I think that staff needs to get with the council people and take a look at our schedules to see what works best for everyone.
Yeah, and I'm not going to participate in another workshop until I receive the requested information, because then it would defeat the purpose. So if staff won't
some
have
of that
time
information
to,
may not come until late in August,
then,
like some funding and things of that nature. That may not come
well, no,
until
not the funding. What I requested is already prepared. It's already here. It's just a matter of getting staff to get it to me.
Yeah,
and can
most
that
of-
happen?
But I
most
don't
of-
want to put you under pressure where you have to work overtime to get it done. But I would just like, before we meet again.
Mr. Clay is a salaried employee.
Oh, well, make it do what it do.
Give him instructions, make it do what it
Yeah,
do.
the information that the councilman requested is available. We certainly just need to massage it, pull it all together, and make it presentable. All the data's there. We just have to make it look nice and clear and concise for everybody. So
And I think that's what I was saying. Maybe it didn't articulate it that way, but that's what I was saying by the individuals here who said what they wanted to see to gather all that information. And then we can be able to meet next week and Mr. Clerk, you'll be able to let all of us find out the schedules for everyone and see if we can get a meeting next week, a workshop next week.
I can definitely work with the members to see if we can get a workshop scheduled in the beginning part of next week prior to our regular council meeting, where we'll be, where the council will be considering the proposed millage rate. So I'll be reaching out to you guys. It'll probably be between Monday or Wednesday immediately before the council meeting, but I'll push for Monday or Tuesday. Yeah, we'll probably make it earlier too. We'll do an earlier meeting, maybe 1, 2 o'clock, to get some time to have some discussion, especially if we do it on Wednesday.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Clay, the information that Councilman Stevens requested, can that be provided to all of us?
Oh, for sure.
Please, so, okay, because I would like to see, okay, thank you.
And again, all of the things that were said here today in reference to items that were in the budget, not in the budget, take all of that stuff under consideration and provide us with that information.
yes, sir.
All right? You got any?
I mean, this has nothing to do with the budget.
Okay. Well, that's what
I
we're
can
talking
ask-
about.
Yeah, I know, I just didn't know if I needed to wait, that's what I was,
Wait,
okay. I have just a question.
okay. All right, all hearts and minds are clear? Thank you, Mr. Clay. And
Yes, sir.
Mr. Clay, could you introduce your finance team if they're here?
I can do that. This is Mirtha Disick. She's our finance director.
Please stand, Mirtha.
Yvette Phillip, our assistant finance director, who works budget. And her two analysts, Destin Simmons and Erica Comer. And these gentlemen are
Who's Erica? You say Erica?
Quincy Jones.
You said Erica?
yes,
Where's Erica?
Erica is
Oh, okay. They stood up at the same time, so I missed. Okay.
Clint, Jamal, and my friend Trombone Shorty are representing us today, sitting in the front row.
Okay.
He-
Well,
he has on
don't
the
leave my office out.
I didn't see Mr. Anthony
You
over
know,
there.
there's not like seat 6.
I have a question.
You got another question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's to the clerk. You took attendance, and normally during a regular meeting, you ask us, do we have an excused absence or not, if someone isn't present. Workshops don't count for that?
Well, the city attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, but workshops doesn't necessarily require a quorum.
Okay.
I take the attendance based on the mayor as the ceremonial figurehead for this meeting. He asked me to take the attendance, and I took the attendance.
Okay, but does, when you give an excused absence or a not excused absence, that's only taken when a quorum is required?
I note on the record whenever there's action of the council to take the excused absence, but because this is a workshop, we necessarily won't do any motion to excuse or unexcuse an absence.
Oh, okay,
Therefore, it wasn't asked.
okay. So we don't have to do?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear.
We don't have to do it. Yeah. All right. Mr. Clay, again, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Manager,
Yeah.
Madam Attorney, Mr. Clerk,
Good job, Mr.
Finance
Clay.
Department,
Excellent job.
Assistant City Manager, everybody. This is a great job. And we understand our marching orders now. And we're ready. This meeting is adjourned.